everyone. I am so excited to be having a chat to my mate Costa. Hello, Costa. How are you?
Hey Alex, how you doing? Hello everyone.
So, Costa is a TV presenter here in Australia. For those of you who don't know him, he is behind there somewhere. Um, he's also an amazing environmental educator and does a huge amount of work to inspire people to start living more in line with nature here in Oz. And I, for one, appreciate your work immensely. Can you tell everybody out there, just for some of the people who might be living under a rock and have no idea who you are and what you do, how you got to be doing what you do today? What did childhood look like? I mean, I'm not talking a half-hour monologue, but, just to
Yep.
kind of get us up to speed with why you chose what you chose.
Okay, that's a good question. Nice broad one. Um, to narrow it down, I suppose I was fortunate to grow up in a Greek family because food was always very important,
Yeah.
and because food was important, it meant that growing it and acquiring it was something that was high in family priority.
Mm.
And my grandfather was a market gardener, so I think genetically, pumping around these veins, I think there's plenty of his DNA
Yeah.
in terms of the soil. And Georgiadis, Yale, is like or Yadis. It's sort of like it's actually Yi is earth soil. So the family name is actually derived from that. So it sort of goes back. If you had to try and pinpoint some of that stuff. But yeah, my grandfather and my grandmothers, all of them, they were really connected to food. They were like, if you were doing something or you were going somewhere, they weren't so much interested in where you were going. They wanted to know what you were going to eat. That's that scale of priority
Yeah.
that it had on food. And I suppose, growing up as a kid, it was like, yeah, okay. But that always, that always makes sure there was food on the plate, food at the table, food in the house, fruit, seasonal, lots of produce, going to the markets all the time. My grandfather would always, he was growing stuff, but if he ever went to the markets, he'd be there with a trolley buying it by the box and then distributing it out to everyone. And you kind of think about that in these days in terms and that's like the food box system. So he was literally a food box, food connect innovator.
Yeah.
Without the names. He was a market gardener. He was a permaculturalist before the word permaculture began because he had the ducks, he had the chickens, he was composting, he understood the importance of soil and that there was no waste. Nothing went in the bin. It went out into the garden and either fed the animals or fed the soil. So in a nutshell, I suppose that's where it began.
Yeah.
Because I spoke my first words of Greek through sitting out in the garden and him saying, what's this? That's a carrot, and say it in Greek. This is a zucchini, say it in Greek. And he'd quiz me and all of that. And then that same scale of priority came through our family as well. And then, from after school, I went to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the first year I just thought I'll do a year of arts and do study subjects I enjoy. So I did geography, which I loved, French, because I love languages, because I learned Greek when I was little, sociology, which probably enhanced, that social side of the Greek culture that I was already loving and enjoyed.
Yeah.
And psychology, of course, because everyone in arts does Psych 1.
Yep, you're looking at
a lecture
one.
there.
Guilty.
In a lecture there with 1,000 people, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was more bouncing off what others were saying until midway through the year, a really good friend of mine said, I'm going to try and transfer to this landscape architecture course. And I looked at it and I sort of thought, design, plants, soil, landscape construction, landscape planning, social planning, health, all these different things, engineering. Well, I thought, wow, I like this. So I went and spoke to the professor, said, what do I have to do? He said, just get good marks, come down and see me at the end of the year. And I did. I got the marks. I swapped seats on the bus into a course which was much higher than what I got into uni on.
Yeah.
But I showed that I could cut it, and I transferred across after first year of arts. All those subjects counted as my general studies subjects.
Yeah.
And I just powered into it and studied landscape architecture for 5 years. Then went and lived in Europe, or travelled Europe, and then found a home in Austria and was working for a company there, building rooftop gardens and natural swimming ponds.
Yeah.
And swimming pools and things, and that combined everything that I loved, and that's kind of how the road took off.
Amazing. And I mean, there are so many things we could talk about. I want to extract some of my favourite Costa wisdom. One of my favourite things that you talk about much more eloquently than I do, even though I try to talk about it too. I'm not putting myself down. You do it very well, is lifting the lid on convenience. So we've obviously got a beautiful group of people here on this journey to really not just think, oh, I shouldn't have that, that's unhealthy, but to actually think, no, there are so many more reasons why that should not be an option, and lifting the lid on those over the course of our time together. Can you share with people your philosophy on why now, why it is absolutely essential that we need to peel back the lid?
I suppose I'd start on that road by saying, if you look at the idea of, I mean, convenience was developed around food. Mm. It began as a way of trying to take people out of what was deemed to be almost an uncool kind of maintenance issue. Like, we've got to cook, we've got to eat, but we not only have to eat, we've got to go and gather it. And,
it's so true. Today I just wrote a little tiny post which was around how tragic it is that time and food together have actually become a negative perception. And not, I mean, that is a tragedy. No wonder everybody's thinking, oh, God, I've got to get dinner happening.
Yeah, which has been a con job.
Mm.
It really has been, because people have sort of handed over that responsibility under the guise of convenience, that it's going to make it easier and it's going to give you more time to do other things.
Mm.
But if getting more time to do other things is at the cost of your health and is at the cost of that slowdown time, that, okay, I'm thinking about collecting what I need, I'm thinking about how I'm going to cook it, and because I'm cooking it, I'm not sort of tapping away on this thing, or, tapping away on the computer, and I sort of...
I wonder how many people are watching you do that and thinking, oh, God, that's me.
You can't see the phone in my beard, but there is a phone there. Sort of doing these ones and got the tablet going and the iPad and 5 other things, and hoffing down some noodles that they've zipped in the microwave. Don't start me on microwaves. But, so it was kind of like this development. And I mean, you only need to look at the word supermarket.
Hmm.
It's supermarketing. And that's all it's been. It's been a supermarketing exercise, a mega marketing exercise to say, hey, we're going to give it all to you. It's convenient. You just come here, you put all your worries out. You don't have to go and see the butcher and the baker and the fruit shop and the 4 or 5 other things that made up the wonderful strip development where all the shops were, which was why people came together as a community.
Yeah.
To know the butcher and to know the baker, and they knew you, and you walked in and hello, how are you? And this is all that downtime. Whereas, the convenience of the computer, you can kind of work twice as long and twice as fast. So people think it's great because it does things faster, but it means that people are doing more. And Here we are at night still communicating and still doing stuff. There's no downtime. That the efficiencies of the computer mean people now do 3 days work in one day and 10 or 12 hours. And so the same with the food. It was all there. It was like, you just have to come here and we'll get it all. And in doing that, we've given away too much. We've given away the control, because then everything had to be homogenized to fit a system. And that system was a distribution system. So they had to get it from you, Alexx, the farmer, and that meant that everything had to fit the box, and so many in a tray, and then 7 trays in a box, and 7 boxes make a pallet, and then 10 pallets on a truck, and so this industrial supply chain solution thinking then actually worked its way back up the river and affected the way things were grown. Because then people were saying, oh, well, because all people were saying was, the dollar signs, because we can make all this convenience into real money. And so that then went up the river and affected everyone up the river. So, if you're going to grow these, you can't grow those varieties because they're actually not going to travel in a truck 500 miles in storage and then this to go to this big supermarket, because the supermarket's demanding that you, Alexx, have to supply 400 tonnes per fortnight. And so suddenly the farms get bigger. So convenience was sold as a great idea, but the ramifications on the food system have been enormous. And then when you tie in the fact that ramification comes right down to our health and nutrition, then we're actually handing over those decisions to people way removed from who we are. And then what happens is you end up with sort of, fine print like this saying, oh, what are the ingredients? And the ingredients are this and that and this preservative and that and this. And then the whole thing grew even bigger because it became more powerful. So then they said, well, we can have all these things that are out of season. So we actually then convinced you that you can have mangoes in the middle of winter because they're coming from the South Pacific.
Yeah.
You can have raspberries and berries right through the year, and you can have this at this time, and you can just gorge 24/7, 7 days a week, 4 seasons a year, whatever you want. And so this, I think, when actually, it's funny because even just sitting and talking to you, you start to dissect it a bit more. But when you think about that, it's not to say that these supply chain solutions haven't served a purpose, but we've got to decide. Each individual has to decide how much of that they give away, not just be done the con job and say, yeah, well, that's just where we get it. Because with that, you get all of this other stuff up the line. And I think, to me, that's where we need to think very carefully about where we allow convenience into our life. Because if that convenience, anything that's convenient has a trade-off and it has a price to pay. And if that price to pay is the preservative, the non-seasonality, the environmental cost of transport, the impact of the growing system that's been put under pressure, that the farmers are being pushed to the limit, so they've got to have a system that requires lots of inputs, and those inputs, for many of them, can be toxic chemicals and herbicides and fungicides and other sprays because they're under the pump. And it's not like necessarily that the farmers
It's not like the farmer's a bad guy. It's almost it's like reactive work instead of proactive work, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, they're part of this juggernaut that, as you asked in the question, that juggernaut comes back to a convenience, and we teach convenience.
Yeah.
If we reiterate in kids that that's where things come from, that's then all they know. But once we start exposing them to growing and understanding that not all varieties of food can travel, and the ones that can travel have been grown to travel, they're not necessarily being grown for the same taste and flavour, then you start to dissect it and give people the reason to question it, not just you know, some half man, half hedge jumping up and down saying, I think convenience is bad. Convenience has its position, but we've got to dissect for ourselves which consequences we want from that convenience.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, the circle of life is something you like to talk about a lot. And not in the Lion King kind of way, but more in the agricultural and the way we live kind of way. Can you share that with everybody?
Yeah, well, I suppose from a circle of life point of view, I mean, we start in the soil, we finish in the soil. The soil's the most living, that's the biggest living entity on the planet. And when we think about it like that, then every step we take, every move we make, that's sounding a bit sting, but...
Let's try and get as many musical references into this question as possible.
We realise that those steps are actually being made on the earth.
Yeah.
And that earth is a living entity. And our actions are either compacting it, dehydrating it, and polluting it, or our actions are either nurturing it, aerating it, hydrating it, and respecting it. And everything that touches us, you know, whether it's these socks and if they're cotton and how that cotton was grown, or whether it's, you know, the plastic of that cover or the water. I mean, gracious me, water, there's another whole story.
Oh, yeah.
But whatever it is, the food, the products, the produce, the materials, they've all come from the earth.
Yeah.
They may be synthetic, but they've come from organic material, matter. So you know, from a circle of life point of view, you think about that fact that what we make, what we use, and then what we refuse, that doesn't disappear. Like, there is no way. There's no, we put it, this takes me into that whole concept of waste, and like, we put stuff into a so-called garbage, which I, as a word, constantly explain to people that there is no such thing.
Yeah.
But there's a garbage bin, or I call it a resource recovery receptacle. But a garbage bin is kind of this linear world that says, oh yeah, we make stuff, there's rubbish, and we take it away. And, you know, the truck comes every Monday morning here, it might be Thursday morning at your place, and to all of you on the other side of the web here, you've each got your garbage day.
Yeah.
And that just goes somewhere. And then we go, oh yeah, we'll put it in the landfill. And, you know, I just bumped into Tim Silverwood crossing the street about minutes ago. And for those of you who don't know Tim, he, again, came up with an idea. He was frustrated to see the pollution, to see that waste ending up, because most waste goes with gravity. If it's not the water moving through the landscape back into our creeks, then into our rivers and into the ocean, it's the wind blowing it, or the water running it down through drains and out into the ocean, and all of these plastics. And he became active and said, I want to do something about it. And as an individual, he started an organisation called Take 3 for the Sea. And the idea behind that was, every time you go to the ocean, or so whether that's a beach or to a lagoon or to a creek or a river or a harbour, whatever, you take away 3 pieces of litter, because that means that those 3 pieces of litter don't end up in the ocean and then in the big Pacific gyre, which is this mammoth plastic floating island that's just getting bigger and bigger in the ocean. But what you see of the gyre is nothing compared to all of the tiny microparticles of plastic that are they're there forever, and they're ending up in our sea life, they're ending up in the fish life, they're killing our ecosystems.
And therefore in us.
And totally in us. Totally. Because, again, it's that circle of life. There is no out. It doesn't just kind of fall off the edge of the spinning planet. Each time we go down, we go, oh, there it is. There's a bit of
magically gone. Yeah.
So from that circle of life question, I'll wrap it around by saying we can dictate so much of how that circle completes when we think about the materials we expose ourselves to and use in everyday life, and how we can replace those things that will become problematic with things that can be composted and put back into the earth. And then when we start to think about that, we can dismantle the waste receptacle and recover the resources, and then reduce what goes in there, and then take what could have once gone in there and put it out into the garden. Yeah. Well, then suddenly the circle of life that you talk about is real. It's rich and real, and every minute of our life. Yeah. And as you become acclimatized to that, it just becomes you. It just, I grabbed some dinner out tonight, and, there was a few little bits and pieces left over, and there was a piece of paper, and I just scraped them off and brought them home because I got chickens in the backyard.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no shame in that. I take plastic containers to restaurants and just say, if you've got any other scraps, scrape the plates in there, and I bring it home. Yeah. Now, that's only a little thing, but then on top of that, I have wonderful friends doing other great initiatives, like Responsible Runners is doing a similar thing to Take 3, in a sense, where that was Justin Bonzi. He said, hey, he was just filthy. For those of you who probably have heard of Bondi Beach, he's a runner, and he would run on Bondi Beach every Sunday and just get furious at the absolute pigsty that the masses of people would leave. So rather than getting angry about it, he said, all right, well, I'm going to start Responsible Runners. And so every Sunday, people gather in summer at 6 p.m, in winter at 4, and they do like an emu bob across the beach. And, there might be 10, 15, 20 people. And this is, almost 1.5 kilometres of beach. And we do it in maybe 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's fantastic, because then they put all the waste there, count the cigarette butts, count the straws, count the plastic containers, count this, and then they track those things back. And then they've developed this further by saying, okay, let's start responsible cafes. So rather than going to the cafe and say, to Alexx's Cafe de Bondi and saying, look at this, look at what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. They go, well, look, have you thought about using paper straws? Have you thought about, giving people a bigger discount if they bring their own cup? And so they've got all these initiatives.
Yeah.
And again, there's a simple way that you can actually do something. And these, like with Tim and like with Justin, individuals started something. And now Responsible Runners is all around the country. And it's not just beaches, it's creeks, it's rivers and so on. And then that sort of dovetails beautifully in with what Tim's doing. And this is two individuals that are having a marked impact on the seascapes of Australia.
Yeah.
Just with their action. And it's tied into the fact that they have strong grounding and a sound grounding in environmental connections. And they say, well, yeah, if we do this, that's going to help. And these programs are now starting to spread out into schools, and they get picked up by other people. And, it's now, there's stuff going on in Bunbury, there's stuff, you only need to Google it and you see how, one individual can make such dramatic change.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think what's really, really important to point out there is that point of you can bitch about it and you can get upset with the people around you not getting it. And, sometimes every now and then on my page there'll be someone who says, oh, when is everyone going to realise that all this processed food is junk? And it's like, well, when people start to teach and reach out, that's when people are going to realise. And I think you don't have to turn it into your profession. You don't have to start a not-for-profit. If any of these sorts of things are scary to you or out of your realm or circle of influence, it's fine. It can be something as simple as putting your hand up to make some healthy wraps with your kids' school class. And I mean, if that's what the action looks like, then that's totally cool, because it just takes everybody to get on board and use the frustration as a platform, as opposed to using it as frustration that sits inside you, which can be a pretty horrible way to live.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're just not here long enough to get bitter.
Yeah.
Because bitterness just will actually make you sick. Because you just stew on these things. And like, I just, my approach is you can't, you don't want to take on, what you want to take on is changing your world, not the world.
Yeah.
And it's a small differentiation, but I use this all the time. I just say to people, change your world, and then you become this beacon, and people will see it. And because you're happy with what you're doing, and you don't have to, force it down people's throats.
Yeah.
You actually then dust it over them. You sprinkle it, because they're going to be interested. Because when people, you know what it's like, if you're around people with a resolve, it's a comfortable feeling, because you know where they stand. They don't have to jam it to you, but you feel, okay, that's their position, that's what they do. You walk down the street, you see someone, furiously, happily tending their garden. What do you end up doing? You stop. Hello, and I say this because of all the verge gardens and the street gardens that I sort of really promote and educate to build. But I say to people, look, I've seen it happen, and over and over and over. You start doing it, you might have people jogging past. The first time it's almost like, what are you doing?
Who's the new hippie on the block kind of thing?
Footpath, and then the second time, it could be just then they jog past, and then the third time, they might go, and you'll go, look. Yeah. And then the fourth time it'll be like, good morning. And you go, oh, yeah, that's nice. And then the fifth time it'll go, it's looking good. And then the sixth time it'll be like, you offer them a tomato.
Yeah.
And that's it. But then by the seventh time they'll go, oh, can I give you a hand?
That's it. So essentially distilled, that translates to people have to warm up. And we have to feel like we're being invited into something instead of being given an ultimatum into something.
Yeah. We need. Oh, there's the camera up there. Yeah, that's right. And I think that the biggest key is to focus on yourself and your reaction to what is often imaginary perspectives. Because just because someone jogs past, oh, they don't get it. Oh, just because they're jogging past, they got other things, and they might jog past for 6 months.
Yeah.
The day they do stop, happy days, And if they never stop, well, you go, that's fine. They're going to find something at a different point. But it's about opening the opportunity, but opening it with a view to the endless potential, rather than, oh, I'm doing this because I'm going to change the street by December 2015.
Yeah.
Because then you create an expectation, and the expectation leads to disappointment. It's not the same. And there's a difference between expectation and intention. Because you can have a good intention and you can work towards it. Expectation puts pressure. Intention puts for me, intention puts possibility. Whereas expectation puts real destination.
Yeah.
And destination leads to disappointment. It reminds me of this quote where I mentioned I was travelling around Europe, And I remember meeting this Zen monk and him saying at the time, it's better to travel well than to arrive. And I remember seeing so much in my travels, people getting things. We came up with this term: you got to get it out of the way. Like, we did Paris. And then, we went to Rome, and then we got Switzerland out of the way because it was so expensive, and we're going to Austria and we'll get that out of the way, and so it's kind of like we're just like you can get your life out of the way. Yeah. I'm going to get my life out of the way. I remember this one experience, walking through this town. There was this major protest rally, and people were just walking past because they're getting to this destination. What was the destination? To find where they're going to stay, or to find the restaurant for dinner, or to find. And just there's 1,800,000 people, and you've just actually missed it.
Yeah.
I like to think that we have a lot more power, but it doesn't need to be exercised in those prescriptive ways that a lot of people think. And then what ends up happening is that you play into a stereotypical environmental mindset, which will then put those people off even more.
Yeah, exactly.
Then people start with as you said earlier, it's good for you.
Yeah.
It's good for the environment. People are just going to go out of here.
I have to share with you, Costa. Actually, we're mates on Facebook, so you'll probably see it eventually. But I came out as an activist today.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And
what did you shed?
Well, I was thinking about it, and I have been thinking about it on and off in my head the last couple of weeks, about how I think activism suffers the same thing that feminism suffers, which is if you call yourself one, then you are instantly the guy hanging off the Greenpeace boat, or you are instantly the hairy armpit chick with a rally poster, trying to get into Parliament. Whatever it is, you just instantly go straight to the extreme case scenario. And I just think, it made me think, there are activists that are really graceful and peaceful, and there are feminists who wear pretty dresses and fight for equality, and it doesn't have to be this way. But because it still is, I agree with you, we have to lead just by being it ourselves and showing people a new definition. So it's not forceful, and it's not hard, and it's not you're all in or you're out and you failed, and it's all of these expectations are actually the wrong way to go. So really important stuff.
Yeah, well, it's just easy to get dropped into a canister.
Yeah. People like definitions.
Oh, well, again, it's that comfort. People want comfort, and you can't be cynical about that comfort, because it's part of a security that most people search for. And I learnt about this when I travelled throughout Europe, and it was around the time of the East Bloc crumbling, and you went from literally from Vienna into Czechoslovakia. It was only 60 kilometres, but it was like driving back 60 years, because Vienna as the West had gone on, and Bratislava or wherever in the Czech Republic had just whether it was Hungary or Czech or East Berlin or whatever, they just they were for want of a better word, it was still like it was 60 years ago. The streets were dark and grey, and that things were very, very sort of Spartan in that sense. But that again was a perception, because I went there and I met the people. I met happy, wonderful families that effectively just wanted the same thing, which was their kids to be happy and healthy and their grandkids to be happy and healthy and to have good meals and food on the table, and all of the palaver that they thought they were missing out on, and the palaver that the West was thinking that these people were missing out on, because they're not us. And then they're over there thinking, well, what are we missing? And it was kind of, well, actually, you know what? You got some really good stuff going on here. Okay, there's some other issues, but you're all out there hiking and cycling every weekend. You're loving the environment. You're doing things. You're together with your family. You've got time off. You're not running around like blue bum flies chasing something which, when it does come your way, you'll realise that what you've got is valuable, and then maybe with some new trimmings on it, it might help. So, yeah, it was very... That kind of stuff really set that whole community, family, clarity dial very, very clear for me. Because I was looking at these people and just because I suddenly went there and, we had to change $30 a day and you couldn't spend it if you tried, right? A beer was 15, 20 cents, half a litre of beer. Food was, we had to change that money. And, you went into hotels and got served by people that were, kind of like your parents' age or older. I wasn't rich. I wasn't throwing the money around like, serve me this 4-course meal, waiter. It was, that's rubbish, because then as soon as I went back to Vienna, the coffee was $5 and we were going, it's so expensive. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
And that at the end of the day, whether it was, the people that I knew living in Austria in the east, or the people that I knew living in Czech and Hungary and so on, they wanted good food. They yearn for good food. They love getting out in the environment, and they love being around family. Like, there's not, I hate to tell you, but there's not much more than that.
Yeah.
Everything else is that convenience, consumption palaver.
Yeah.
That's
so
just
true.
It's just a marketed hoax. You'll be better when. And when you've got the bigger triple wide screen and so on and so forth, but then you'll be stuck in front of that and you'll miss out on all the good stuff, and your health is going to go like this because you've handed your food over to someone else because you're too busy doing something in a screen and not actually doing it in reality. So, it's a very fine line.
It is a fine line. And you talk about, you've talked about kids a couple of times just in there, and certainly marketing, I think, to kids is probably one of the biggest problems that we have. So let's just say there are a lot of parents in this course specifically, or maybe even people who have a partner where they're meeting resistance, where they really want to implement this. They've got the clarity, they've got the drive for themselves, but that I know we've talked about invitation, but sometimes when it's that close to home, it can feel really hurtful and very lonely.
Yeah.
To be on this journey yourself. Have you got any little tips for coaxing, showing the way?
Yeah, look, you're spot on there, Alex, because it's a bit like, if one partner, pick an example. I mean, classic old example from years ago, like Amway.
Yeah.
One partner goes off on Amway and they've been sold this big dream and they're going to make all this money, and they come back and the other partner's sitting at home going, whoa. But a more contemporary one would be like, going off and doing something with like your course or doing a permaculture course. You go away, you need to come back and just have the cooling off period, particularly when you go out and, you're doing this intensely. And one of the essences behind the permaculture course in the 80s was because the world was such a churning machine, consume. We're never going to die. We're never going to run out. We're going to build bigger and, greed is good. They had to have a 2-week intense course where they pulled people out of their life. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had an impact because they were so caught up in it. Now you've got permaculture introduction courses. You've got permaculture courses that run over weekends now that you can do 12 weekends rather than the 12 or 14 days straight. So you do, every Saturday for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little more connected to the lifestyle today and people can ease into it. So in answer to your question, I'd say to people, when you get excited about something, when you suddenly get this view, this crack opens and you've got this beam of light and you think, wow, green smoothies, we're all going to have them every morning and we're just going to see the world and we're going to be healed. You got to go easy because a lot of people are just going to struggle with it from the start. So, even like on that example, I say to people, start easy with the juice and then ease those other things in. So start with familiar flavours just on a juice alone and then slowly add it and tweak it a bit and get, if it's kids, get them involved.
Yeah.
You don't start them with a ginger, avocado and kale. They're just going to do like this. But, use the banana base so they have a friend in there.
Yeah.
And then I'll taste it and, use a rice milk because that sort of has a natural sort of a sweetness in it combined with the banana and a few green leaves in there and a little bit of, a couple of your green, whether it's kale or
we're getting a bit of a Skype lag. Can you stay still, Costa?
Mint, you could add mint because that gives it that little bit of a lift and so on. So yeah.
Try and stay still for a second that way because I think Skype's having a little freak out. Okay, perfect. Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's the flailing arms. Skype can't handle it.
Yeah, jeez. I'll sit on them. I'll sit on my arms. So just using that as an example, think of it in those terms. It's you don't suddenly turn up at 7 a.m. for the family and offer them a pressed garlic juice. With ginger. They're just going to freak out, regardless of the epitome that you might be seeing and feeling. You start those things easy. Same with even something as simple as a composting system. Make sure you do your homework and you just start off small. Start off very small. And then when you get it up and running and you start to teach your family. Say, okay, now all the food scraps go into this bin. But don't just have it in an open bowl, which then attracts the vinegar flies. So then the kitchen is abuzz with little vinegar flies because, mum's tripping out on saving the world by collecting the scraps and leaving them in the kitchen all day. And, they're the little. I mean, it's funny, but believe
I'm only laughing because that's actually what we do, and my family just had to like it or lump it, and actually everyone got on board. We're all good.
Yeah, and when they suddenly realise that separation in that case is all that it needs, then the garbage bin never ever smells again, ever, never. And then the garbage bin suddenly becomes less and less. And then you can start to make a little competition and you say, all right, let's see if we can go for a week without putting the bin out. Or let's measure.
Yeah, we do that. And we do it with food waste as well. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I think, I realised, because I'd done a bit of work with the beautiful Ronnie Khan from Oz Harvest, and I realised just how bad the food wastage situation was. And one day I took my chicken livers out of the fridge to finally make that pate that I'd been meaning to make, and they were gone. Not only had I lost $10.50, but an animal had died without me using absolutely every piece of it, which I really don't like, and it really kind of freaked me out. It was, you just have those aha moments, and that was definitely mine. And so up on the fridge went a waste list, and the first week we had like 3 or 4 things on there, second week 2 or 3. then all of a sudden you just don't really need a waste list that much. Actually, you forget to even put the waste list up because you find ways to use stuff and make an end of fridge soup and all sorts. So
Yeah.
it's yeah.
So imagine if you do like what you're, are we on farming again?
Yeah, we did. Stay still. We're good.
Okay. So imagine if you do simple things like weighing the waste each week, it's and record it. Just record these little things so that it creates the opportunity for conversation. Because conversation is what you need when you're changing a situation.
Yeah.
You don't want just like it's my way or the highway.
No monologues. Yeah.
Why? Well, have a look at this chart. For the last 8 weeks, we started and we pulled out this much each week. And then you can say, all right, well, now let's separate the cans. How many cans? How many this? How many that? Why are we buying the food in trays? What's that repetitive tray? What's on that? Oh, we're buying corn separated on trays. We've got to stop that.
Yeah.
Buy it fresh and just as the whole cob. And when you start to do that, hang on, I've just got a secret visitor. Thank you. When you start to break it down into simple little steps like that, that becomes the incentive. They're like the little hidden charms that are disguised in the information, and you can apply that then to the things that you're buying and say, well, do we need to buy rice milk in a container when we could actually get the rice and then start to make it ourselves? Or almond milk, a little bit of cheesecloth, and you can soak the almonds overnight, stick it in your blender, and there's your almond milk made fresh out of almonds. So then you're looking on that container and saying, well, that means we've eliminated, what was in there. There was almond milk, but there was also a little bit of preservative or a little bit of this or a little bit of whatever it may be. So there's your little connection. And then you say, well, now let's make this competition and see if we can go for 2 weeks without putting the bin out, because we no longer are collecting this. And it's almost like people would never carry all this potential garbage before they had a vehicle. So then you start to tie it back to the fact that we're living large on a resource that isn't there forever. So every little recipe that you can pick up, a recipe for less waste, a recipe for healthier inputs to your body, more so as parents, to you parents out there, inputs into your children's growing, building bodies, then you can start to say, well, we have a vested interest here. Do I want to be plugging my child with food that is out of season, with food that's travelled a long way, with food that I don't know what's been sprayed on it, I don't know what border control sprays, has it been dipped in methyl bromide or hasn't it, what other things have gone on? I could go down that road, but we don't need to, because what happens is as you start to develop and dismantle the charade, the beauty is that you pair it back to relationships again. And that's a relationship with a grower, that's a relationship with a farmer, or it's a relationship with a producer or a manufacturer. And you say, well, yeah, okay, I don't have time to make rice milk or almond milk or to make my peanut butter, but I know that this guy's making it and it's purely fresh, or my little supermarket here, you can take the peanuts and mix it on the spot. So the other thing I like to say is, in answer to your question about what about the partner or the family that's a bit reluctant, just one thing at a time. Just do one thing at a time, and the message will come across, but just as a nice, metered, easily digestible amount, not clear the kitchen cupboard out and stack it up and stack a big bill up because you suddenly, buying things that might have a little more price because more effort's being put into it. But because you're not spending lots of money on all this convenient food, the money you save there can then go into decisions that you want to make. You're not conveniently being dudded $300, $400, $500, $600 a trolley for the weekly or fortnightly shop for a lot of things that your body and your family doesn't need. Mm. And yeah, it's just bit by bit, like I think I was saying to you the other day. I mean, just start with your toothpaste. Start asking questions about your toothpaste, or start asking questions about your underarm, or, even just your milk. Start to ask questions about your milk, or and maybe introduce one alternative. If you just want to shift around a bit, go for an organic milk for a change, or go for buying some things this week from your growers market. You don't have to change the whole thing in one hit, but just start to go. Make it an excursion. Make it a fun excursion. The first time, just go and have a coffee, or go and have an ice cream, or go and buy some breakfast there and wander around and just experience it, rather than go, we're going to buy everything from the growers market this week and everything's going to change. It comes back to what we're saying about this: build the confidence. You have to engineer it a little.
I love it. We can use the hermit crab metaphor for this. When a hermit crab feels threatened, it's like, I'm just going to go back in my shell.
Yeah,
exactly. Out.
Exactly, and that's what people do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this. You need to develop this skill where you allow for excitement, but contain it in the right circumstance. If people are really early on that road, well, turn the excitement into an exercise of discovery, and rather than an overzealous, I've seen the light.
Yeah. My motto is discovery, not deprivation, as well. This is an exciting, opening kind of energy rather than, I can't do all the things I love anymore. It's really important.
Yeah, otherwise you'll rack up a list of, you can't eat chocolate, you can't eat this mayonnaise, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, maybe take that, instead of saying, well, you can't have the mayonnaise, maybe make a little project and say, let's make some mayonnaise.
Yeah.
And make it fresh.
Yeah.
And then do a taste test.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it doesn't have to be mayonnaise, it can be a million, like I said, it could be mayonnaise, it could be rice milk, it could be your own pesto, because you go, well, let's grow some basil. And then what are we going to do? Let's mix it up and let's make the pesto. Now let's have it on our pasta. And then the next week you could say, let's actually, well, not the next week, but the next project that value adds to that is, let's buy some fresh pasta. And then the next one in the school holidays could be, let's actually roll some pasta, or let's do a pasta making workshop.
Yeah.
And take one of the family or one of the relatives or whoever it is that you're working with, take them with you.
Yeah.
And so that way you've got more allies, and you can apply that to each and every thing in your life. It's the same.
You can. It's us together, not me against you, inflicting an idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I suppose you then start to audit the other things in your world, because then it's like, what about this disposability? I suppose the convenience you talked about early, convenience really dovetails with disposability and single use. That's where it's inconvenient, because it's convenient for that short period, but then it's very inconvenient for the long-term environment in which your kids are going to grow up.
Yeah.
So as you start to dismantle the disposability, then you can say, I take, I have my, I shouldn't move, should I? Okay. It's not a show and tell. I'll just use my words. But that's where you have, just by starting and having 3 or 4 shopping bags in the car every time you go shopping, so that you don't have to get the plastic bags. Or if you go to the fruit shop and you want to have them separate, or you want to have them in things, have lots of little bags that you can put the stuff in, so you're not ripping out another plastic bag. And then others in the shop see you, and they mightn't change immediately, but you just sort of go, and you put a little marker in there, and then they'll think about that.
Oh, that's so funny. Just a flashback to like 100 experiences in the shops where I'm like, oh no plastic.
Oh, yeah, and it's really funny. I mean, I did that 3 times today.
Yeah, I do it every day. Every day.
Just had it in double plastic straight away. I said, I don't do plastic.
Yeah.
And they're only doing it because that's the routine.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day, and it's kind of like so much of our culture is based on the systems and the rituals that people have had forced on them. So there's kind of this almost tit for tat. Well, I had to do that, so I'm going to force that on you. And the real power is in that ability to say, well, I had to endure how you forced that on me, but I'm not going to force that on someone else because I don't believe that. And that's where I think a lot of people go, oh, well, that's just how it's always been done.
Yeah.
No, nothing's always been done. The whole range of concepts we've been talking about, that's just been 50 years. That whole convenience.
Oh, totally.
Barely.
Yeah.
50 years, supermarket, 60 years maybe, something like that. Yet it's affected the whole world because it's this industry now. And we don't have to, we can impact it not just by, we've got to be careful not just to walk out of it.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have
an effect. I agree, and I've written about supermarkets before. Could it be a good thing? Is there potential to do some good in there? And there's like a select sort of 7 or 8 items I probably buy still from a supermarket, for both the price and the C word, the convenience.
Yeah.
But they're all ecological. I know exactly the farm that the butter comes from that I buy from Woolies. I know exactly. I've had a 30-minute conversation with the head technologist at Aware, the Aware and Planet Arc guys.
Oh, yeah.
Their washing powder to just really get the transparent. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying everybody else has to do that out there, by the way. I'm doing the work for you, and that's why I do my courses. But
which is awesome.
At the same time, it's like if we then buy those things, or can at least conscious people go in there and buy a few things that are the conscious things in the supermarket, that sends a little message too about what the people are now looking for.
And it goes back to everything that you were saying about for everyone, doing out there listening. You just need to implement these changes at a pace that works for you, and that's the key. Otherwise, if you alienate yourself and your family, and it becomes a chore or a battle that you just have to, like, the word battle is an interpretation, and it implies this. And once you do that, well, then they're going to jump up and do that against you. Whereas if you just let that pass and you say, well, this is what I want, this is what I believe, then you take away the battle stations and actually open up the communication lines, then you can you can have not just a little bit of impact. You know, you can have a really big impact, first of all, with your family, and everyone. You have a big community impact, and it starts with your family community. Then that goes out to your extended family community. Then it goes out to your street community. Then from your street community to your school community. Then from your school community to your municipal community. Then from your municipal community to your regional community. Then to your state community, and then to your national community, and then to the whole community. So if you think about the fact that the whole community only exists because of the little family community and its part in the cob, well, then you'll never feel like any decision you make is not worth it.
Mm. Well, that, I think, is a really good place to end our chat. That's a beautiful way to finish. Thank you so much for your time. So many good little nuggets in there. I'm sure everyone is going to be hugely inspired. We might invite you into our little private group to say good day when your video goes live.
Cool. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so you can have a chat to everybody. There's some pretty amazing change happening. At the stage that we're now having this chat, we're only on day 3, but the commitments people are making to themselves, the way they're already starting to decide, make their little lists of changes they're going to implement this week, next week, try little things out. It's really exciting. So,
yeah, well, look, I mean, to everyone out there, congratulations, because I mean, just signing up for the course is a really big statement, personally. But then you'll start to see the ramifications of that personal statement and its implications on the world around you unfold over the weeks. So don't feel an urgency. Just allow it to wash over you, allow it to absorb and take it in through osmosis and let it wick into each and every cell. You don't have to go out and sell it. Actually, just let it into your cells, and then that will be the best cell.
Yeah.
Because what it needs and what this movement is and what Alexx is going to, I imagine, explain over this period is that it is about you allowing this transformation, not forcing it, and not creating a time frame, because there is no time frame. Once you've set off on this journey, so I suppose the one thing I'll tell you, there is no turning back, which is great.
Yeah,
You've changed just through the commitment.
Yeah.
Just through signing up, that's enough to say, I'm on, but I'm no longer there, and that door's closed. You cannot go back. Like, it's finished. You're going to be different people, and that's why I love to be here, because you know you're embarking on this thing, and it's just like a bud, and you know, once the bud opens, it moves into a new thing, and it can't be a closed bud anymore, and then it becomes a flower, and then that flower
and then it
just
shrivels up and dies and becomes soil.
Goes down and becomes compost, and it grows into the next flower the next year, which is beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Thanks so much for the chat, Costa. I'll see you real soon.
No worries.
Bye.